Using my story. Hey everybody, welcome back. Today we're going to do another educational video, also known as Drugopedia. Today we're going to be covering one of the most deadliest and toxic drugs known to man. It's called carfentanil. Many of you have heard of it, many of you haven't. What is carfentanil? Carfentanil is a potent synthetic opioid used to sedate elephants and other large animals. In humans, tiny amounts can cause a fetal overdose. The drug is an increasingly common ingredient in deadly batches of heroin and cocaine. Now, some of you might be wondering, why are we talking about carfentanil? That's something that, is taking down massive animals, and really, why is this even part of the subject of substance abuse? Well, you might not know, but carfentanil is growing in the use of substance abuse among addicts. Many people have been talking about how deadly fentanyl is, but carfentanil is much more deadly and toxic than fentanyl. So let's dive into 5 facts for carfentanil. Fact number 1. Carfentanil is a synthetic opioid. It's a white powdery substance that looks like it could be cocaine or heroin. Drug dealers mix it with heroin to make it stronger. And this makes people feel like, oh, this is that bomb. This is that fire heroin, so I'm going to continue to come back. Point number 2, it is 10,000 times more potent than morphine and 100 times more potent than fentanyl. So you could see right there just how much stronger it is. I've seen images with the penny and just a little sprinkle of carfentanil next to it, and this is actually a lethal dose. It could kill you. Number 3, the drug is also used to tranquilize elephants and other large mammals. So there you could see again how toxic and how deadly this substance is. Point number 4, this drug is so powerful, it poses a significant threat to first responders and law enforcement personnel who touch it even by accident. In addition, people can overdose on carfentanil quickly, and multiple doses of the anti-overdose drug Narcan may not even be effective. Now let's talk about this for a second, because I've seen stories in recent news that a police officer who had gloves on was doing a search, and she came in contact with carfentanil, and this police officer actually died. They passed away even with medical gloves on. That's how dangerous it is. And many people say, well, I'll just have some Narcan ready, and if I OD on this, then somebody can just help me out. And people, it's good to use Narcan if you're struggling with addiction, but don't depend on Narcan to keep you alive. You never know what you're getting when you use carfentanil. You don't know if that's going to be your last time. The 5th thing I want to share about is how users are exposed to carfentanil can experience dizziness, clammy skin, shallow breathing, heart failure, and much more. If you're struggling with carfentanil, I highly recommend you get treatment. Don't continue down that road, and we're going to talk a little bit more about some options here in a minute, but I really just want to highlight how dangerous and how toxic carfentanil is. Now we're going to talk about how addictive is carfentanil. Unlike other morphine derivatives, heroin, or other opioids, carfentanil does not lead to addiction. It is too powerful for humans who have not developed a tolerance to strong narcotics like heroin or fentanyl. Even for people who struggled with addiction to powerful narcotics, a dose of the size of a grain of salt can rapidly lead to an overdose and even death. So this drug right here is something that people are not even used to taking. Nobody's walking around saying, I'm addicted to carfentanil. People are saying, I'm addicted to fentanyl. I'm addicted to opiates. And this drug right here is what's actually leading to many, many deaths that are caused from overdose. On the addiction scale, we always talk about this on every single educational video or Drugopedia. We always talk about the addiction scale, and on the scale it goes from a 0 to a 10. On the addiction scale for carfentanil, this drug is not addictive. we give it a 0 because this drug is not something to mess around with. And this drug is not something that people are out here craving. They're not saying, man, I just really need some carfentanil right now. I can't stop thinking about it. No, they're thinking of the fentanyl. They're thinking of the opiates. They're thinking of the pressed pills, the fake M30s. That's what they're thinking of when they're having those cravings. But little do they know the carfentanil is in there and it can kill them. Now let's talk about overdoses on carfentanil. Carfentanil has been found cutting heroin and even fentanyl sold on the streets. Law enforcement and emergency medical personnel warn that carfentanil sold illicitly looks like other drugs found on the street, including cocaine and heroin, because it's odorless white powder. Carfentanil, like fentanyl, has been found cutting heroin and other drugs to increase its potency and the heroin dealer's supply of the substance. So drug dealers are cutting their heroin, cutting other opiates with this substance to make it stronger. That way they can get the customer to come back because that customer feels like they have the strongest stuff on the street. The potential for overdose is extremely high in the case of carfentanil. It is known for strong sedation effects and it's used as a tranquilizer. Carfentanil overdose can be fatal. You can literally die from overdosing on carfentanil. Recognizing the symptoms of overdose are crucial so you can actually continue to live. A lot of people that overdose don't say, man, I want to die today, or they're not suicidal. Some people are. Some people know what they're getting themselves into and they want to end their life, so they take a lethal dose. But a lot of people that are dying now are people who weren't expecting to die. I know a story of someone who was using meth and there was fentanyl in there and he died from the fentanyl use. Most common symptoms for overdose and opioids. Number 1 is pupil constriction. Number 2 is respiratory depression. Number 3 is loss of consciousness. I've ran into many people, I work with a lot of people who struggle with addiction as a former recovering addict. I've worked with a lot of people who struggle, and many people, you would be surprised, you would be shocked to hear that I have had conversations with people who overdosed. They ended up in the hospital, they leave the hospital, and they go get high instantly. Overdose doesn't always make people want to stop using. Some people actually enjoy overdosing. Some people actually enjoy the feeling of being that close to death because of all the issues in their life, all the pain that they're dealing with, all the regret, all those things that are built up on the inside of them. They're just looking for an escape. Carfentanil is responsible for a high number of overdose deaths in the United States every year, mostly due to the effects it has on the respiratory system. Respiratory depression can often lead to death if it's not treated, and sometimes results in death even with treatment. I've seen people and I've heard of people, the ambulance has come or they overdosed in a sober living or another treatment setting, and whoever was there would use Narcan on them, and they use another Narcan trying to revive this person, and this person actually never made it. They never were able to breathe again. Now, let's talk about the withdrawals from carfentanil. Every time we do the Drugopedia videos, we always talk about a withdrawal scale. On a scale from 1 to 10, how heavy are the withdrawals from carfentanil? And at this point, we're rating the withdrawal scale for carfentanil with a 7 out of 10. Now let's talk about the timeline of carfentanil withdrawals and what that could look like. Within 12 hours of withdrawal, you'll be experiencing fatigue, nausea, vomiting, body aches that could start within that 12-hour range. Within 72 hours, 3 days, the symptoms get worse. You could experience between day 2 and day 3 for it to just skyrocket and hit its peak. People talk about having diarrhea, fever, changes in heart rate, blood pressure, all different types of issues. And I can't stress this enough. If you're dealing with withdrawals from carfentanil, this is not something you want to do on your own. It's not something you want to just do cold turkey. And within 2 weeks of withdrawal, symptoms begin to get better. people begin to feel like they're getting normal again because the peak period is over. This includes uncomfortable physical symptoms like vomiting and diarrhea. Some people still have physical discomfort at this point. Now let's talk about several months. When we talk about several months, this is literally what we define as pause or post-acute withdrawal symptoms. Some people say, man, I haven't used in a month. I've been clean for 30 days, but I still don't feel right. I've been clean for 60 days and I still don't feel right. Well, there's something called post-acute withdrawal symptoms, and this can last anywhere from 3 months to 9 months to even a year. So within several months, the physical symptoms might be gone, but many people will still contend with psychological symptoms after withdrawing from carfentanil. What is that like? This includes high cravings, anxiety, depression, insomnia, and others. Many people might not realize, but cravings is a massive, massive withdrawal symptom. You're not just having cravings because you had fun using that drug. You're not just having cravings because you missed the good old days. Your body is actually still craving that drug as part of the withdrawal process. And this could be super challenging to get through. A lot of people get discouraged when they have post-acute withdrawal symptoms. They say, man, if I knew I was going to get clean and feel this bad, I would have never got clean in the first place. Or why do I feel better even though I'm clean? I'm sorry, why do I feel worse even though I'm clean? I thought things were going to get better. So it's important that you connect with a sober support network, connect with the outpatient program, still continue to work with your therapist. A lot of people say, you know, I just need to get back to my normal life. I need to get back to my kids. I need to get back to work. Life has to go on. I have bills to pay. And yes, you should still take care of all those responsibilities, but don't neglect yourself. Don't neglect the self-care because you need that in order to keep a sustained recovery. You don't want to just be clean for 30 days or 3 months or 6 months. You want to be clean for years, for the rest of your life. Now, let's talk about the effects that carfentanil has on the brain. Carfentanil binds to opioid receptors in the brain. This overwhelms your natural chemistry and leading to overdose symptoms almost immediately. Fentanyl, for comparison, creates an intense euphoria and drowsiness when binding to the opioid receptors of the brain. These receptors also control your breathing rate, which is also why opioid overdoses are typically characterized by depressed, irregular, or stopped breathing. Now, let's think about the effects that it has on the body. When you talk about carfentanil and how it makes you feel physically, you will feel drowsiness. You will feel slowed or depressed breathing, disorientation, sedation, pinpoint pupils, clammy skin. This is how you know that you're feeling the effects of that carfentanil. And this is where many people come in and out and they begin to nod. Maybe you've seen people nodding on social media or even in your own family, and they're just kind of like nodding like that. And they're coming in and out of consciousness. You'd be surprised, but many people actually love that feeling of nodding. When they see someone else nodding, it's a trigger to them because they want to get back in that state. They want to be in that mode of not caring about what's going on around them and being slowed down and being disoriented and having that sedation going on. Now, with all that, I really want to talk about how toxic this drug is. Every time we do these videos, we have a toxicity scale. It goes from 1 to 10, and that shows us how toxic and how deadly this drug really is. For carfentanil, we have to give it a 10 out of 10 because it's so strong and so deadly. Anyone involved with these is asking for a bad overdose or even death. Many people who struggle with depression and also struggle with substance abuse, they have the same mentality. I don't really care if I live. I don't really care if I die in the streets. I don't really care if I die by overdose because my life is already bad. So be very careful for those people around you who are struggling with depression, who are struggling with getting high and using and always going out into the streets. keep an eye on them and really just be there for them, and really just let them know that you care about them and you love them. If you need help with the intervention or just getting in front of them and sharing with them how they could get help, feel free to reach out. You could always hit the link in my bio. There's a phone number there. You could dial that phone number. We have a lot of resources that we could help you out with. Thank you so much for watching. If you have a friend or a loved one that needs help, or maybe if you need help with this substance or any other substance, feel free to reach out. Let us know. We'll do all that we can to help you. And please like and subscribe. If there's any other substances you want me to go over, put them in the comments and we'll be sure to get to those. Thanks again for watching.